Hi everybody, I'm Sarah Swinnell and I'm glad you're here. In this video, I'll be guiding you through completing Distress Tolerance Worksheet 1 Crisis Survival Skills. This is a tool that helps you manage overwhelming emotions and prevents crises from escalating. Before we begin, it's important to note that this worksheet is best used after you've learned all 6 crisis survival skills. Since the worksheet lists them all, if you haven't learned every skill yet, you might not be able to complete it fully. The worksheet requires you to identify 2 separate crisis events and then reflect on how you applied the crisis survival skills. Even if you used other skills or strategies to get through the crisis, only write down how you used the 6 crisis survival skills which are listed in this worksheet. We use crisis survival skills when we can't solve the problem immediately, whether because it's not the right time or because we're too emotionally overwhelmed to think clearly. A crisis doesn't have to be a disaster. A situation is a crisis when you feel intense pressure to solve a problem right away, but acting impulsively could make things worse. Some examples of crisis situations include receiving a breakup text from your partner while at work, getting a job rejection email, having a conflict with a loved one, experiencing an urge to relapse in recovery from addiction, and failing an important exam. So let's go over the 6 main crisis survival skills that are here on the worksheet. Stop refers to stop, take a step back, observe, and proceed mindfully. The pros and cons are about thinking through the consequences of acting on intense emotions versus using coping skills. Tip refers to temperature, intense exercise, paced breathing, and progressive muscle relaxation. These are body-based strategies that help you to quickly shift out of high emotional arousal. Distract with accepts is a skill that uses distraction to shift your focus away from distress until the crisis passes. Self-soothe is about using your senses to bring comfort and calm, like listening to music or holding something soft. And lastly, improve the moment. Uses skills such as imagery, meaning, prayer, relaxation, and other techniques to make the moment feel more tolerable. So let's walk through how to complete the worksheet. We start by describing a recent distressing situation. Remember, you'll need to identify 2 different crisis events for this worksheet. For each crisis event, write down what happened, who was involved, where and when it occurred. So let's imagine that you had a disagreement with a close friend, which led to feelings of frustration and sadness. So I've written here, I had an argument with my friend because they cancelled plans at the last minute, and I felt sad and frustrated. Notice that the prompting event is written just the facts and non-judgmentally, so it avoids labels, blame, or assumptions. It's just a description of what happened and not your opinion of it. Let's look at what a judgmental description might look like. So here I've written a prompting event that is not using the describe skill and is judgmental. I've written here that my friend was rude and disrespectful. And now going back to the description that's non-judgmental. Oops, that's supposed to say I argued. You'll see here that there's no judgments and it's just using the describe skill. Remember that practicing using your describe and your non-judgmental stance skills helps you to observe your experience more accurately and also respond more effectively. Next, what we want to do is rate your level of distress before you used skills. I'm going to pop in an 85 here out of 100. In order to work out your level of distress, it can be really helpful to anchor where your 0 and your 100 is. So a 0 level of distress is the calmest, most peaceful moment you've ever had, whereas a 100 level of distress is the most distressing moment you've ever experienced. So use those as anchors to work out how distressed you were after the prompting event and before you used skills. So next we are going to check off the crisis survival skills that you used. Remember, even if you used other skills to get through the crisis, for this worksheet, just write about those that are listed here. I'm going to tick off pros and cons and self-soothe. The next step is to describe how we used those skills. And here I have written that I used pros and cons, and I did this by reminding myself why I value the friendship and reminding me that cancelling plans doesn't mean that the person doesn't care about me. And I also used self-soothe. So I took a warm bath and I listened to some calming music. Next, we want to describe the outcome of using those skills. So maybe the skills helped you to lower your distress, maybe they prevented you from acting impulsively. And here I've written that as a result of using pros and cons and also self-soothing, I was able to avoid lashing out, and also my friend apologised and explained why they cancelled. It helped me to feel a lot less frustrated. Next, we want to rate the effectiveness of the skill. So we want to select from 1 to 5 how effective the skills were in helping tolerate distress and coping with the situation. And by that, it means helps you to not do something to make the situation worse. And we're looking at a scale from 1 to 5, where 1 is I still couldn't stand the situation even for 1 more minute, and a 5 is I could use skills, tolerated distress, and resisted problem urges. So I'm going to mark a 4 there. And then the last one for this crisis event is to rate the level of distress after using the skills. And I'm going to pop down a 50 up the top there. So that's crisis event number 1 completed. And the next step is to repeat all of those steps for a second crisis event. So overall, this worksheet is a really powerful way to track how you handle distressing situations. If you keep practicing, over time, the skills will become second nature.